Good Thursday, everyone. Welcome to the Volquest.com Mailbag podcast presented by our good friends at Exterior Home Solutions. We appreciate their continued support of Volquest, and we encourage you, if you're in East Tennessee, to give those guys a call and support them. You can give them a call today at 865-524-5888. That's 865-524-5888. They take care of all the things you need. Your number one choice in roofing in East Tennessee. If you got a deck you need to add on, you got a fence, whatever you got going on, they can check it out. They can take care of you at Exterior Home Solutions. We've got a bunch of questions to get to in the mailbag. I'm joined by Rob Lewis, Austin Price, and Grant Ramey, and we'll get started here out of the gate, guys. We're going to bounce around to some football and some basketball, plenty of stuff, but we'll start with NWGA Vol. That's Northwest Georgia Vol, and he wants to know, how much does adding Brazel, Stays, and Hurd change the outlook of the offense for 24? AP, that's assuming Hurd comes here. What does it change the offense?
Well, I think it definitely it makes them better up front with Hurd. Providing that one finishes out right. I mean, he's yet to officially announce anything, but again, continue to feel great about Tennessee's spot there. And then if Brazel produces at the same rate he did at Tulane on the outside, big play, big body, go up and get it, 50-50 ball winner. That helps. Stays to me is the one kid that I wouldn't say I question. There's an unknown there because he came from Notre Dame, different type of offense. Here they just they use their tight ends a little bit differently. So I think he's got great upside and potential. I just think you have to kind of see it, right? Like he's done some really nice things, but to do it in this offense, I think would be a change. And so I think that there's an uptick for the offense adding any of those playmakers.
All right. If Hurd comes here, Grant Ramey, is Hurd and Stays important? Their importance 1A, 1B, and then Chris Brazel is not as important because when you look at the bodies that they have and the depth that they have at those spots?
Yeah, probably. I don't know what to think of Brazel yet. I kind of got burned on Dante Thornton, and obviously Brazel's produced at a much higher clip than Dante did at Oregon, and that made a little bit more sense after we saw Dante. But yeah, it does feel like 1A and 1B with those two because, and what I'm interested to see with Nico, they only had 2 tight end targets in the Citrus Bowl, and I don't know what their average targets were through the regular season with Joe or with Hendon the last couple of years. I'm interested to see how much they target the tight end early next season and how much that number goes up compared to what we saw from Nico's first start. And obviously that could be just because it was his first start. But I think Brazel's the exciting addition, but I do think 1A, 1B is probably offensive line and tight end just because of what you said, the depth and how much you needed to address those spots.
I think it all works hand in hand because I think that in part of the Citrus Bowl, they had to leave some of those tight ends in to kind of block because they weren't as good up front, right? So Hurd helps out, which allows Stays to go out, it all kind of works. So, I mean, I think they're all important. I would tell you that I think Brazel's probably behind Hurd for me. And that's because I just think Tennessee wasn't very dynamic at wide receiver this past year. I thought it was very much 2007 Vols, which is, we've talked about that, which is when they had Lucas Taylor and Quinn Hancock and Josh Briscoe and Austin Rogers, good solid players, but they didn't have elite athletes out on the outside, right? And so I think that, Brazel's got the possibility to be an elite guy on the outside.
Yeah, to me, I've got to take Stays just because of the importance of the tight end to the offensive to this offense. I mean, they don't play 4 wide. They're playing with a tight end all the time on the field, and I don't think Ethan Davis. I mean, they split equally 2 tight ends last year over 600 snaps apiece. So I just think that they've got to hit with Stays. Whether he produces 30 catches or not, I mean, he's got to be able to play in there and be productive. So that's where I would go 1A and 1B. But they certainly have to get more explosive on the outside. I've got more on that later today in a football story that I'm doing. Let's go to Sam. Huh? Yeah, a little piece there. Sam Smith, 2233, has got a couple of hoops questions here. Rob, we'll start with you. Scout on Alabama for this weekend, and do we start to see Frederick take Gainey's minutes, and any concern about this basketball team lacking any depth, Rob Lewis?
Well, starting with Freddie, I think you're already seated, take some of his minutes. It's not like Freddie's playing a ton right now, but I think if you broke it down, it's probably Gainey that he's taken him from. And, Jordan's playing a lot less, in the last, 2 weeks than he was in November. I mean, significantly less. And I think Rick is giving Freddie a chance. I mean, he's not giving him a ton of chances, but I think pretty clearly he's trying to give Freddie an opportunity to take some minutes from Zakai, so that Zakai's not playing 35, 37 minutes a game. And Freddie's going to have to seize it. He wasn't, it wasn't terrible yesterday, but he wasn't great. I mean, he had a defensive breakdown, he had a turnover, and I'm not trying to be hypercritical of Freddie, but every time he goes out there, it's kind of an audition for him, and he needs to be pretty sound if he wants to see those minutes increase. As for Alabama, it's typical. They're going to shoot a ton of threes. They're scoring. Excuse me. They're scoring all kinds of points. I mean, they scored 90 plus, against Missouri on Tuesday night. Mark Sears is a high volume shooter, leading scorer in the SEC at just under 20 points a game. Not nearly as good as they have been, but they play Nate Oates basketball. I mean, Tennessee going to be on, defensively, it's going to be a challenge, but, Florida came in here scoring almost 87 points a game, this week, and Tennessee just absolutely took them behind the woodshed defensively. So, the way Tennessee is playing defense right now against these teams that are so offensively oriented, and especially, teams that rely so much on the three, like Bama does, I like Tennessee in these matchups. I mean, Tennessee is either first or second in the SEC in defending the 3-point line, depending on what Mississippi State did over the weekend. I haven't gone back and looked, but they're holding teams to under 30% shooting from behind the arc. Alabama lives and dies with the three, so give me the Vols to make life tough on them.
Because of Alabama's style of play, Grant, do you think this sets up for a potential another 30-point game because they want to get up and down the floor, and Knecht's going to have more opportunities?
I see no reason why not after the last 3 games we've seen him play, 28, 36, and 39. I mean, that's a pretty crazy heater. And for him to be back home and to play a game that's going to be up and down with that matchup, like you talked about. I mean, at one point, Alabama was number 1 in KenPom offense and like number 102 defensively. I think they're up to in the 60s or something like that. So they've improved a little bit in those numbers. But it's going to be up and down. It should be, I don't know, a lot of offense. Obviously, Tennessee's going to try to deny Alabama's offense because that's what they do with Rick Barnes. But yeah, if it gets up and down and it turns into a Mark Sears versus Dalton Knecht, it could be a lot of points on both ends.
All right, so I'm gonna call an Omaha here before we go to the next question. I'm gonna ask my own mailbag question to Rob and Grant. Grant, you mentioned you kind of got burned by the Dante Thornton love affair, right? And this is the beautiful part of the transfer portal, right? I mean, it can give it can take it away. It can be a home run. It can be a swing and a miss. What surprises you the most about Dalton Knecht? Rob, jump in here too. What surprises you guys the most about Dalton Knecht after seeing him play for 2 months and him being on campus for 6 months?
Probably his confidence, his just kind of being that dude. I mean, and we heard stories about this out of Pratt Pavilion back in the spring. There was one story where it was one of the first workouts that they were in, and Knecht was out there, and basically somebody said, "Yeah, you scored like you have against other, not at this level, I guess." And basically Dalton said, "Somebody come out here and try to stop me." And basically they started putting money on it, and Dalton took somebody to the rack and scored, and he started flashing the money signs like, "Pay me my money." Like, that's the kind of confidence and kind of edge that he has as just some kid from the Colorado suburbs is crazy to me. So that's the most surprising. Obviously, his production and, for him to have the dip that he had for 3 or 4 games in December and to come back and to do what he's done the last 3 games, 103 points and, all these 20-point halves and scoring 20 out of 22 against Florida in the final 7 minutes of that first half. I mean, it's crazy what he's doing, but just the fact that he has that edge to him, that confidence, he's as good as he knows how good he is, and he goes out and shows it.
Rob, what about for you?
Well, to me, it's the versatility. I mean, I'm trying to. I mean, not the fact that he's a multi-level scorer, but just, the way he finishes at the rim. You look at some of the left-handed drives and left-handed finishes. The way he takes is able to take contact and get to the line. I just I'm not saying I didn't think he was a good athlete. I'd seen him enough in traffic dunks and things like that to know that he was more than just a spot-up shooter. But everything that happens, I guess, in between the 3-point line and the rim, I didn't know he had all that to his game. Didn't suspect he had all that to his game. The way, the one he had yesterday in the first half where he, kind of turn around, takes contact and throws it high up off the glass, or the one, I don't even think it counted, the left-handed layup where he got fouled and, threw it almost off the shot clock. It's a crazy, stupid angle. Just the breadth of his offensive game. I did not know it was there. But again, I knew he could shoot. I knew he could, get to the rack and surprise some people with traffic dunks and things like that. But just the all around, the multi ways that he can score, I had no idea. He's an artist.
It was wild. I mean, I was sitting there, and the guy beside of me, who happened to be a Volquester, he says, he's due for about a 7-point game. He says this, okay? He has 2, right? And then 14 points in like 4 minutes. And the guy on the other side looks at me and goes, "You pissed him off." I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it was like, he is kind of like the starter version of the microwave. Like, and Hubs brought up a great point on the board and other stuff. Like, he doesn't force a lot of shots. Like, I was watching the 2-minute drill. That's where it was, or the fast break. Like, all of a sudden he's like 1 for 1. Then all of a sudden he's 9 for 10, and it's like boom. Like, he just doesn't force things. He lets it come.
He scored with 17-11 left in the first half, I think, against Florida. He didn't score again until 7:05. So for that final 7:05, he scored 20 points. 20 out of 22. There are only 2 JP Estrella free throws. 9 for 10 from the field. 3 for 3 from the 3-point line. Something like that. That's absurd to me, that how much he produced in such a short amount of time. It felt like anything he put up was going in.
Yeah, 20 points in 7 minutes. When you go 10 minutes without taking a shot in a half of college basketball is just kind of bananas to me. All right, onward we go to Nashville 615. Question regarding my red zone piece. Why the start drop off? What can Tennessee do to be better in the red zone area? To me, it starts in 2 areas. One, they've got to be more physical in the run game and short yardage. That's where they missed Jerome Carvin and Darnell Wright. And 2, Grant, your quarterback can't complete 40% of his throws in the red zone. You got to be more productive throwing the football in the red zone.
Yeah, you got to be better. That's where it starts for me, quarterback play. What Tennessee was used to in 2021 and 2022 obviously took a little bit of a drop off in 2023. And it's got to get back there in 2024. And Nico's going to be young and he's going to be learning on the fly a bit, but you got to be better there. You got to be better decision makers. You got to be, I think everybody has to be a little bit better, but I think it starts with quarterback.
All right, question number 2. When do you think GMac knew he was going to hop in the boat? What are some of the critical experiences that are going to get this one or has gotten this one across the finish line? Obviously, he's not committed yet. Austin, Tennessee appears to be in good shape. What has been the key for Tennessee's recruitment of George McIntyre, in your opinion?
I think if you ask George McIntyre, he would tell you he's still not made a decision. That George is, again, I've said this. If George ever learns to play poker, pal, he'll take Vegas for all they're worth, because that kid is unbelievable. Like, as far as he shows no emotion. I think that what got this one
to this point,
what got this one in the position that it's in right now is the fact that he's just very comfortable here. It was lengthy conversations with Josh Heupel, lengthy set downs and hangout sessions with Josh Heupel when he would come on campus. Whereas, like, you go to Alabama, and no offense to Coach Saban, he kind of had his method, which is more like, it's more structured, right? Nick Saban, every moment of Nick Saban's day is like, all right, from this, from 3:05 to 3:07, you're going to go and you're going to, say hello to the moms and dads. From 3:07 to 3:09, you're going to say hello to the aunts and uncles. And so, like, at Alabama, it's way more structured. So you get less time. And so I think the time that he spent with Heupel and just hanging out, and Joey Halsley, as that relationship has gotten better and better and better, I think really was the thing that's kind of put this in the position that it's in right now.
All right. Nashville 615's last question. Rob, we'll go to you. Honest take on the Alabama hire.
I just think, no matter what you did there, it was going to be probably criticized unless maybe if you got Dan Lanning or, got D'Amico Ryans to come home against all odds. I'm not blown away by it, but the guy just coached in the national championship game. So obviously he's a very competent football coach, but I wonder about culture. I wonder about the fit, and I just wonder how he's going to do when, like right now, when they're getting, kids are, hurtling towards the portal down there. I mean, how is he going to hold up, with the public, with the fans? I mean, how much criticism is he going to come under? I mean, I think anybody, even if Dan Lanning had gone there, I think you'd see kids leaving or commits not wanting to come there. So, I give Al. I mean, I think Alabama made a really good hire, but anybody, you brought in there is going to be open to criticism. I mean, AP, don't you think so? I mean, I don't think it's a great fit culturally, but I mean, the guy checks all the boxes you could want for, professional competence.
Yeah, I mean, again, he is one, as you said, checks all those boxes. You just don't know what he's going to be like culturally, and sometimes somebody's came in from, Saban went from Michigan State to LSU and fit just fine, right? And then went to the NFL for a couple of years, and then went to Alabama and to that powder keg and was just fine. Then you've got Brian Harsin, who comes to Auburn and is a disaster. So like you just don't know yet. Now, the one thing I think they all coaches they want to go at their own pace, but in this era, like whether it's admin trying to fill a vacancy because you really don't have, you can't do what Tennessee did in 2017 in this era, or you get just destroyed. But even for coaches, once they're in, like bringing the players in for a meeting 2 nights ago and preaching patience, just be patient with us. Like players, man, they don't want to hear that, man. They want to go. They want to make a decision. I mean, like, Caleb Downs sat in that meeting where they preach patience. And now 2 days later, Caleb Downs is in the portal. So I mean, like, I think that, it's one of those things where you just won't know until he starts coaching ball and kind of builds the team the way he wants it. The problem is Alabama fans are going to have no patience for anything, no matter who they hired. It wouldn't have mattered. It would not have mattered.
No, I mean, nobody has any patience, but particularly them, given the success that they have had, there's absolutely zero patience there. All right, we've got a bunch more questions. We're going to get to as many of them as we can here in the Mailbag podcast. But first, a message from our good friends at Exterior Home Solutions.
It's one of those phone calls that you hate to get from your kids. Hey, Dad, a tree fell on my house. Well, we got that call a couple of weeks back from our daughter at her house here. And the first call that I made was to Exterior Home Solutions. The peace of mind that they gave me and us as a family when they came out here and came up with a plan, got us connected with the right people, is absolutely priceless. Use the same people that I use. In that time of need, Exterior Home Solutions.
And again, we thank Exterior Home Solutions for all that they do for Volquest and all that they do, more importantly, for the people of East Tennessee. Give them a call for any of your exterior home needs. All right, let's go to Athron here, who's got a trio of questions. We'll start with this one, AP. Not a prospect-related question, but we've seen it this cycle. Why is it so important to the kids to get a Haynes Fawcett edit versus one that the school sends out? And the second question is, how would you rate the running back room's pass blocking going into next season?
Well, it's definitely something they have to fix and get better at. Samson's got to continue to improve. Cam Seldon, I think, can be that guy. I thought Cam Seldon had a really good bowl game. The only time he, kind of struggled just a fraction was on the short yardage stuff, and that's because he came in too high. And again, I think that's something that's easy to fix. As for Hayes Fawcett, have you looked at the number of followers Hayes Fawcett gets on Instagram and X? Because it's massive. And so when he does your announcement and you're tagged in the post on Instagram and he's in it, you're getting all that rub and you get all those interactions and all that stuff. And that matters to kids. And it's become like kind of a rite of passage, right? I mean, why do all kids that are 8 to 12 want to drink Prime? Why, they all want to drink Prime because all the other kids are doing it. That's the same thing here. Like, it's become one of those things where, you want him to do your edit. And, Hayes is very particular about not over flooding his Instagram with too many posts. So, and a lot of times it ends up being like, hey, I'll do it, but, you got to wait till this time. Then you have a pecking order of portal kids, all-star games. And for Hayes, like it's a moneymaker. I mean, like at the end of the day, like, he makes money off his Instagram and off his X account. It's part of his revenue. And so, like for him, it's easier to drop out a top 10 list or top 20 list and have 20 logos on the graphic, and then all 20 fan bases are interacting with said post, than it is even a commitment, because you're talking about one fan base. So, I think it's just more than anything that all the kids are doing it now. And until they find their new avenue, he will continue to be the guy that kids roll through to make their edit, if they can do it, if he's willing to do it.
All right, let's move on here to Wiremaker, who clearly was blocked in or snowed in and came up with this set of questions here. But these are fun, so let's go with his snow day questions. We'll start one. What allowed Denarius Moore to make the leap and become the best receiver on the Tennessee football team in 2010? This is not going to make some Tennessee fans happy, Rob Lewis, but I'm going to go Lane Kiffin.
I don't argue with that. I mean, the guy. I mean, look what Lane Kiffin did with Jonathan Crompton that year. I still think is one of the most impressive things we've seen from a Tennessee coaching standpoint. And I'll throw David Cutcliffe in there with what he did with Eric Ainge also. I mean, I think those were two examples where, you saw guys at the quarterback position who had lost some confidence and stopped being productive, or not being as productive as they were earlier. Two coaches came in and really turned their careers around.
Yeah, I think for me, Lane Kiffin and Kippy Brown, the two best wide receiver coaches I've seen work in person. I think Lane Kiffin's been a successful receivers coach. He's made receivers a lot of money everywhere he's been. Grant, what held Jabari Davis back from being an all SEC running back?
You're asking me? That's a great question. I don't know, because I was probably in seventh grade when Jabari was failing to gain all SEC accolades. I have no idea. You're going to have to fill in the blanks for me on that one.
I just think it's speed, don't you?
Yeah. I think it's his lack of speed. I'm not sure he was always the most focused guy early in his career, even though he had some success, in a limited role his freshman year at Florida. But I think overall it was his speed. It was his speed.
Jabari had like 8 touchdowns in the swamp, so he don't need all SEC. And he won 2 games down there, if I'm not mistaken. So that's good enough for him.
And there will never be a better picture than him on that train track in his high school football jersey.
Yep. The J train was marketed very well, for sure. How good could Jansen Jackson have been? As good as he wanted to be. And that's simply put there. He was an unbelievable athlete who, again, struggled with a lot of focus. What turned Nick Reveiz into accumulating 108 tackles and finishing 5th in the SEC? Rob Lewis, Monty Kiffin?
Yeah, I'd say that's probably a pretty good one. But also, I mean, what Tennessee's depth looked like at linebacker at that point? I mean, I'm not going to pretend to remember exactly, but I feel like there had to be, some guys maybe not exactly pan out for Nick to have played. And this is no slap on Nick at all. I mean, you talk about guys making the most out of what they had. I mean, he's at the top of the list.
All right. And his last question, Jalen Hurd was best suited to play football at what position? I'm going to say running back, because if he had stayed focused, he'd be the all-time leading rusher in Tennessee school history.
Yep.
I mean, he ran too high. I get that. He was too tall maybe, but I mean, heck, it's not like he wasn't a good running back. He was a really good running back who decided he didn't want to play running back anymore. Logan Bartlett's got a question here. 3+ years in, what coaches have pleasantly surprised you with their recruiting prowess, and who have been the best recruiters you've seen on Tennessee staff over the years that are not here currently? Meaning you can't say Rodney Garner to answer that question from Logan. AP, let's start with you. What coaches in 3 years have surprised you as recruiters?
I will go Jerry Mack, because I think when he first got here, I think the head was swimming a little bit. He's coming from Rice. He's coming from North Carolina Central. And, it's just different recruiting at this level. And I think, his room has quietly become one of Tennessee's best rooms. He's done a really nice job. He connects well with kids, and just kind of has a really laid back approach, right? Like, I think if a kid went in the portal, okay, let's go get another one. Like, I mean, I don't think there's not a lot of panic with Jerry Mack. I think BJ, same thing. And Kelsey Pope has continued to come on. And I think I think the sky is the limit for Kelsey Pope. I really do. I think he can be really elite as a recruiter. But again, he's in the first couple of years of learning. And I think that's where Like, I think he took a huge step from year 1 to year 2. I think he's going to take an even bigger step going into 2025 cycle. I think he will have an opportunity to maybe be Tennessee's best recruiter in this next cycle. So, I think he continues to get better. And I mean, even a guy like Alec Ablin, who I thought got his teeth kicked in last year, has already picked up a really nice get because he built a relationship with a kid who had some Tennessee ties, who lives in the state of Texas, that plays at one of Texas' best programs in South Lake Carroll. And, so I mean, he's learning. So, I think there's some things, and we all talked about Chop in the Monday night chat. Coach Harbin does a fantastic job for a non-on the field coach. I mean, what he gets done is super, super, super impressive.
As for coaches who are no longer here that were good recruiters or were impressive recruiters, if you go back to before he was an offensive coordinator, what Randy Sanders did in the state of Louisiana was certainly impressive.
Arian Foster.
Yeah, he stood on the table for Arian Foster. Wanted him, and obviously recruited some quarterbacks to Tennessee as well. Trooper Taylor, Rob Lewis was an effective recruiter. And I'll tell you another sneaky good recruiter for Tennessee that I thought was a good recruiter, Greg Atkins.
Greg Atkins
was a really good recruiter.
Well, I mean, he was Phillips. Am I remembering correctly, Hubbard? He was Phillips' recruiting coordinator at the time, like had that title on staff.
I think he did at one point. He was a tight ends coach and then became the O-line coach. He was just, Jesse Mahalona, Albert Twin.
Yeah, he could find some guys. I mean, it wasn't just, it wasn't just being able to close. It was a bit, finding some, under the radar guys like that. Albert Toledo. That's one of the. Can you remember that recruitment? You remember, like, we didn't have a phone number for Albert. We had a phone number for like a friend.
Oh yeah, had a friend.
Not a parent, not a coach, but like a peer.
And you got Jesse Mahalona at his girlfriend's in Las Vegas for that commitment, because he was not in Hawaii because his dad was working like on an oil rig or something. It was there was always something like that. It seemed like with guys that Greg Atkins were recruiting.
I will also add in sneaky good Zach Azani. You look at the receivers that are right now in the NFL. Whether it's Jawan, Callaway. You can go right down the list with some of those receivers that were on that 2017 team, 2018 team. Zach Azani was responsible for a lot of those guys being in orange.
I mean, getting in the Wayback Machine. Mike Berry was a pretty solid recruit. I mean, you look at all these guys didn't pan out, but remember what level of recruit guys like Jason Respert was, or Sean Young, or Michael Munoz. I mean, Tennessee, some of those early 2000 offensive lines, probably had everybody that was a starter was probably a top, 200 prospect at one point.
Yep, certainly recruited the Midwest effectively for Tennessee. All right, Brazil's got a question here. Grant, since Rick Barnes can't coach forever, let's say hypothetically he retires in the next 3 to 5 years. Give me some of your early candidates to replace him. Your favorite kind of question.
And it's dust off my hot board.
Yeah, dust off your hot board. Give me your 2030 hot board, because everybody knows who the best coaches in college basketball are going to be in 2029, 2030.
Well, here's the thing. There's going to be two forces at work here when Rick retires. There's going to be Rick Barnes wanting to bring in a Rick Barnes guy to replace him. And there's going to be Danny White, who I don't think will want to bring in necessarily just a Rick Barnes guy to replace Rick Barnes, somebody from Rick's tree. So I think from Rick's point of view, you'd want Rob Lanier or Kim English or somebody along those lines. I think from Danny White's point of view, however many years down the road this is, I don't know where he'll be at the time. Maybe it's too soon for Tennessee fans, but I would look at Dusty May and what he's built at Florida Atlantic, and the fact that he works for Danny's brother, and there's a lot of connection there between those two. You know what you're getting out of that. So I think those are the two things you got to think about. I don't know who the coaches are. I don't know what names you could throw out there at this point that would be realistic, because you have no idea what the timing is going to be and when this could happen. Nobody thought Saban was going to retire the last week when he did. So who knows when it happens? I have no clue. But I think those are the two forces at work. Is it going to be a Rick Barnes guy, or is it going to be somebody that Danny goes out and plucks himself?
I'd say the only way it'll be Rick Barnes guy, and this could happen, I could see him doing it, is if he retires like in June.
Yes.
Right. I can 100% see him doing that. But and I don't mean, I'm not saying Danny has any animosity towards Rick at all, not in the least. I think they have a great relationship. I just don't think that Rick's going to have any say in his replacement, and I'm not sure.
And I think if if that timing did happen where it was pretty quick turnaround for the season about to start, you could see an interim kind of thing where it's a one season thing and then they start fresh with a coaching search.
Yeah, I don't see
bring
Danny
in your
being-
own guy and to go through the whole thing. I don't know. It would be weird if the timing worked out that way. It would hurt if the timing worked out that way, but it's certainly not unrealistic.
Yeah, Hubbard, you know Danny better than any of us. I don't see him getting held hostage like that. You know, even and this, you know, this is all speculation. Even if Rick did try to, you know, manage it to where, you know, he could force feed it, you know, his choice in there. I think Danny would do what Grant would just said and just name an interim and do it his way.
Yeah, I mean, you know, who knows how that's going to happen, and who knows how long. I mean, I don't know that Rick Barnes is going to slow down.
I don't think he thinks about it, man. I really do not.
I'm with you. I don't, and I'll tell you this: I think he likes this basketball team he's currently coaching because I think the personality fits a lot of what he's looking for. You got some underdogs, right, and you got some football robot or some basketball robots out there. I don't think he's got a ton of off the court drama he's having to deal with. I think he likes the makeup of this basketball team for sure. Brazil had a second question, AP. If this youth movement in the secondary fails, does Willie Martinez get the benefit of the doubt due to the youth, or will he be a guy that is, quote, back on the hot seat since he was working on an expiring contract this past season?
Well, I mean, Willie has got a new contract, and it's a multi-year deal. So, you know, I think you're always, even the guys that have multi-year deals, they're always working year to year because, you know, college football is a big money game. And, you know, if a coach feels, you know, like he's got to make a change, then he makes a change. I think, you know, a lot of this boils down to, you know, the development of the defensive line. They got a lot of those guys back. James Pierce is back, obviously. And you look at the course of the season, that secondary was pretty good when Desi was getting all the pressure early in the year. And then when the holding calls never came about middle part of the year, and teams started figuring out how to just, you know, arm tie, you know, Tyler Barron and James Pierce, the secondary wasn't quite as good. So I think it works kind of hand in hand, but you know, I think it's more just a year-to-year deal. But you know, Willie's back and has a multi-year deal.
All right, two questions here from Cade's Vols. Thoughts on the second half offensive issues this season in football? Was it a statistical anomaly that we shouldn't worry about, or a sign of something else? That's, I guess, the offensive struggles in the second half. And the second question is, with Saban retiring, Harbaugh likely to the NFL, and rumors of NFL teams wanting Kirby Smart, what will it take for the NCAA to make significant changes to the calendar? Let's start with the first one, because I think the second one is a little more of an in-depth conversation. Thoughts on the second half offensive issues this season in football? I don't know that I thought, you know, boy, they got a lot of they had a bad second half at Alabama. But I don't know, Grant, that I'd sit there and went, boy, this is a really bad second half football team. Maybe that's not fair, but I mean, the Missouri game, they were bad for 4 quarters, right?
Yeah, and it's hard for me to judge the 23 season because of what we saw the previous 2 years. And they need to get a quarterback that they trust and that can execute in this offense at a higher clip than Joe Milton did. And they played Joe all year, and they said he gave him the best chance to win and all that. And I believe that stuff. But I need to see what it looks like in 24 before I think there's any big time issues or long-term problems or lack of depth or whatever the issues were. I think they just need to get better at the quarterback position and get back to, you know, Nico in theory could be as good as Hendon Hooker could be based on how highly he was rated and all that stuff coming out and what people think of him. I need to see what 2024 looks like before I make any sweeping judgments about how bad the issues are from 2023 going forward, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they got to work the middle of the football field in the passing game. I mean, they were a hash to the boundary type team. They're going to have to work and get back to having some confidence to throw the ball in the middle of the field. As for his second question, and we've talked about this some, what will it take for the NCAA to make significant changes to the calendar? I don't know. I don't know how there's pros and cons. The calendar's got to be fixed. I think every coach will say that. And this is the biggest issue is everybody says it's got to be fixed, but nobody's sure how to fix it.
Yeah.
Right? Because here's the thing. Let's go under this theory. You're going to move signing day back to its original form in February, right? You're going to take away the December signing day. Well, how many kids, Rob Lewis, are going to get cut from a scholarship opportunity because a coach takes a transfer kid in his spot? And how does that change kids' recruitment in the month of January when all of a sudden you're not signed yet, and the coach is saying, "Hey, we're battling the 85," but hey, I know that's a developmental offensive lineman, but I can go get this guy who started 14 games at the Power 5 level last year. How does that change, and how does that benefit the high school kids in February? Would be my question about moving it back there.
Well, and the flip side is how many guys that you've had committed that were Plan B for a bigger school or a school that they want to end up decommitting from you because they haven't signed. They don't have to ask out of a letter of commit because school A lost the transfer. It's not moving it to February. I don't think it fixes anything, and I think it, just like what you're saying, Huber, I think it opens up a can of worms for kids getting their scholarships pulled, or for schools losing guys because prospects are decommitting and going somewhere that now suddenly has room because of transfers. When the semester ends in December, I mean, that's not going to change. I mean, I think we can all agree on that. Semesters are going to end in December, and when that happens, I mean, kids are going to transfer. I mean, you're not going to. That's not going to change. I mean, December is going to be a crapshoot, and it's going to stay a crapshoot. And moving signing day doesn't do anything for the portal.
No, it doesn't fix the portal at all. And if you move it to August or September 1, then you're dealing with the fact that you got coaching changes throughout the season. How reluctant are kids going to be to want to sign that early? Now, I know you can get out of whatever, but I mean, how valuable is a signature September 1 with coaching changes going on out there? And how reluctant are teams going to be reluctant to sign guys September 1 because it potentially takes away any other depth number, because what you need in September 1 may be different than what you need in December.
Am I crazy thinking that the unlimited transfers is just as bad of a problem as the calendar is?
Way worse.
Way
worse.
Because I don't think this is a kids today problem. I think if the NFL worked on year-to-year contracts and could be renegotiated every year, there would be players that were playing for 4 teams in 4 years, and it would be just the same that we're seeing in college football. And like, I don't understand the unlimited transfers. Like, one free transfer, that's fine. If you graduate, you can transfer. I think that's fine. If you have a coaching change, that's fine. That's up to 3 transfers for one kid if it played out that way during the course of his college. I don't understand the unlimited transfer, because it seems like that creates just so much more chaos when it's not necessary. When you already had one free transfer, you could create some of those caveats if stuff happens situationally for some of these players. But more than I don't know how to fix the calendar. I don't know if anybody does, like y'all are talking about. You can talk about it, but it's another thing to propose ideas. I think you got to go back to, one free transfer and then try to fix it from there, because it's just going to keep kids are going to keep leaving because they have those unlimited moves.
See, September 1, it provides kind of an interesting dynamic, because how many times, Hubs, over the years have you seen any coaching staff, here, everywhere, where they like a kid a lot, then all of a sudden, they like a senior tape that much. I mean, or don't like the kid, don't want him. And then the senior tape, I love that kid's senior tape. Let's go hard on him now. It's like, they get so caught up in kind of, being quick to judge both ways that, like, a September 1, I think it'd be interesting, just because you might sign some kids where you go, man, I wish I hadn't signed that kid. Or you tell a kid, we'll have you sign in February. And then the kid goes, wait a minute, well, what's that mean? I mean, like, there's just some dynamics to that where it would be fascinating to watch.
Well, no question. And then, you had Kirby Smart saying, what you were saying, Austin, I think on the podcast a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, about, hey, you can't transfer until after your second year. You got to do 2 years somewhere before you can transfer, which is never going to hold up in court, for God's sakes. I mean, we're in you can transfer multiple times a year now.
Multiple times a week. Look at Tyler Barron. He's everywhere, man.
Well, look, I just want to say, look at Tyler Barron. I mean, he's been committed to 2 schools now, and he can transfer again at the end of spring practice when the portal reopens.
And maybe he will. You never know with Tyler.
Bring him home, AP. Bring him home.
Trust me, they won't be bringing him home.
Yeah, and I mean, he's strictly trying to make a business deal, right? I mean, AP, that one feels totally about, where am I going to get the most money in my last year of college football?
You don't go to Louisville unless it's about money. And that's no knock on Louisville, but let's call it what it is. They're a basketball school who's decided to get a little bit more serious in football with Jeff Brom. But at the end of the day, they're in the ACC and they're a basketball school. Denny Crum isn't walking through the door up there. So, but Brandon Huntley Hatfield is, and Tyler Barron, those two up there together.
Yeah, and that's where Tyler Barron lands. And the question of the calendar is a never-ending topic. I mean, that's one that we'll be talking about in the offseason as well, because it is a problem, and it's a problem that doesn't have an immediate fix. It doesn't have a quick fix. It doesn't have an easy fix, and it doesn't have a fix that anybody's going to be able to agree upon, which is going to make – I mean, next year it's even going to be more challenging when you think about it. You're going to be in the middle of playoff games while all that is going on and decisions that you have to make. You're going to be playing playoff games or preparing for playoff games, which is crazy. But that's the world that's been created, and it's not slowing down. It's not stopping, is my point.
The one last thing about Tyler is I know we probably got some extra money to go to Louisville. If I wasn't staying here, I would have stuck with Ole Miss, because you're playing beside Walter. You're playing opposite of the Prince kid from Florida. You were going to have other pieces around you, right? Now at Louisville, you're the guy. Yeah, and now everybody's going to scheme to stop you.
Yeah, but listen, if it were going to be about that, stay here. You got James Pierce on the other side here. You got 4 seniors in the interior. My point is, for 3 years, he's been looking for the best business deal he could make. And he finally decided to go somewhere. And now it's truly become, Grant, just about making the best financial business deal. That's what he's doing.
I was going to say, I'll say this about business decisions. Respect for Isaiah Bond for calling it a business decision to leave Alabama, and then his next post was from the front seat of a Lamborghini, and the geotag was Austin, Texas. That's a good opportunity. Obviously, Texas in a good spot right now. But call it what it is. The kid wanted a Lambo. He could get a Lambo in Texas. Go to Texas.
It's like Live Golf. You want to go play Live Golf? Great. Just say you wanted the money. Don't say you're doing it for the betterment of the game.
And you want to wear shorts and play 54 holes and get $500 million. Just call it what it is.
Call it what it is. 100%.
Right. And that's exactly what Tyler Barron has done, and many others have done, as Grant mentioned there with Isaiah Bond. All right. That's going to do it for this edition of the Mailbag Podcast, presented by our good friends at Exterior Home Solutions. For Rob Lewis, Grant Ramey, and Austin Price, I'm Brent Hubbs. Have a great rest of your Thursday, everybody.